All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the quick learning lab for the breakout session. I know everyone's trying to get into morning tea as well. This is just a quick session to really start to introduce you to online engagement and Engagement HQ, how we see it working as well. But one of the really good discussion points which I think came out of the first session today was deliberative capacity. What does that mean? And I think that's really what we're wanting to highlight here with online engagement being a source of how can you start to measure that, which will be really interesting. Just a quick show of hands, who currently uses Engagement HQ as a platform within your organisation? Fantastic, so we've got some people here. The others, how familiar are you with Bang the Table as an organisation? No? Okay, I'll give you a quick overview. So as an organisation, we're focused on, there's two parts of the organisation. Bang the Table is around best practice in online community engagement. So we actually provide a really strong body of knowledge around involving people meaningfully in decisions that are going to impact their lives. And that's really where the organisation came from. We're 8 years old now, so we're not into our second decade. We are an Australian-based company, and really what we've started to do is there's two parts. There's the practice side of the organisation, and then there's the commercial side, which is online engagement platforms. So how do you start using a platform to help engage with your community? The key things that we're wanting to look at, I think we'll start at a project level and then really push to the broader concept of deliberative capacity at an organisational level. So whenever we're speaking about engagement, the first question we're always asking at a project level is who needs to be involved in this conversation for you to be comfortable making a decision moving forward. So it really is identifying stakeholder groups, the public, the community. How do we actually understand that they've got a voice within this conversation? The second part we're always looking at is when we're running an engagement, to what extent can they actually influence an output or an outcome? If there's no level of being able to influence anything, it's not really what we see as an engagement process. It will probably be more around brand or capacity building. The last thing that we always look at is capacity building. So based on who needs to be involved in the conversation, what they can influence, we need to start to develop content and context around the consultation that's meaningful for that involvement. So I think it was really interesting, Lucy speaking about that. She was on the far left of the room at the beginning, left of the room facing the stage. So that was her speaking up there, and I was probably quite close there. When we speak about online engagement is a facilitated space. It's not something that's static. It really does need a lot of people to jump in and start getting involved. And it's about utilising a whole suite of tools at different stages that are relevant for your community. So what we actually see is a lot of people when they start thinking about community engagement online, is running surveys. These really aren't a strong engagement tool. There's no public visibility, transparency of what's being said back to the community. It really is one way to the organisation. These typically get around 2 or 3% engagement rates. So that's your average engagement rate that you're expecting to get from a broad public consultation. As you move along the spectrum, what we're wanting to do is get people to start involving the community earlier on in discussions where they have a greater ability to influence the outcome of a project. So what we're seeing is when you jump up to this end of the spectrum of tools, lighter engagement tools like idea generation, interactive mapping, discussion forums, engagement rates go up because the community understand that when they're in that space, there's a level of transparency and information going back to them because they can actually see their discussions going up live. And there's a level of feeling that they can actually influence something rather than a survey at the other end of the spectrum. So a lot of people are all speaking about the design process. We see it working really well within an engagement space. And this isn't just about online, this is offline as well. Empathising with your community. This is really, you're already on the ground. People are already listening to the stories and the language that's happening within the community around your projects. Moving on to the definition stage, this is where you start to refine and go, all right, well, within the resources of this project, what is the scope that the community can actually influence? And then bringing them through this broader process of ideation, getting people to start generating ideas within the context of that project, and then prototyping, working with them more closely to refine that further. Most organisations start engaging more along at this stage, testing. They've already gone through a strong process and gone, this is what we think we need you, this is what we think that you are wanting from the end of the project, and we need to know if it's a white picket fence or a hedge. So the options and the ability for people to influence are really quite low. If you bring people in earlier on in the process, that whole piece at the end when you start to test is really more refined and working for the community. This is really what I wanted to show you around involving community ongoing, not just at an individual project level. This is the value of, I think, one of the measures that we're, deliberative capacity that we're looking at here is that when people first start using online engagement, these are really quite transactional. The metrics here are aware how many people have come to your site, informed what percentage of people have actually built capacity around that project, and engaged what percentage of people have actually made a contribution. 2 or 3% is sort of the standard, regular, but when you start fostering people, involving them earlier on in the conversation, looping them back in at different stages and getting them involved in other consultations of a similar nature that you know they have an interest of, engagement rates actually jumping up quite significantly. And this is like a 2-year process for a lot of organisations. And building that relationship with your community through good practice. And what we're seeing here is my biggest concern with this, like we can see a good growth in engagement rates, but what we're starting to see is that now that they've got a community that they've fostered, they're starting to pull back on how they actually promote. They're not building more people within their database, they're not fostering that relationship. My favourite example here is this rural shire, population of 30,000. It's only gone up 1% in the engagement rate, but that's 1% of 12,000 versus 6% of 1,000. So that's a massive increase for them in relation to the size of their population. And the real strong measure is, at this stage, is now how active are they? Have they come just for one opinion, or are they coming back on a regular occasion to get involved in multiple consultations? And that's really, I think, the value of building an online community. We'll just look at a few examples. So this is a brainstorming tool used by Parks Victoria at the moment, just around getting ideas from the community, how they're actually using parks. This, including as well as the Places tool, the map-based one, these are really light touch engagement tools. This is around the ideation stage. It's not a deep process for someone to jump in and give their ideas. So what does it mean from a data analysis perspective? You're getting a lot of ideas from the community. They can toggle on voting. That sends a message that you might actually deliver on the one that gets the most votes. Most organisations are more risk averse than that. They're wanting to collect those ideas, refine them, and then go back to the community and say, of your ideas, these are the ones that we can work with. So you have to facilitate this space. It's not a set and forget scenario. You need to jump in and actually promote back to the community what's happened at those transition points. Why have you made a decision to move forward with these options for the community to refine further? And I think that's something that often people think that once you set that online engagement space, you don't need to facilitate it. But Don, we've just done some analysis on all of our data from back to 2014, and what are the characteristics that really drive good engagement. Don's running a session tomorrow in the morning, which is looking at benchmarking at industry levels, what is actually influencing engagement rates at all of those levels. So what makes good practice? How do you actually build up those, that relationship and that back and forth, that healthy engagement with your community, not sticking to a single engagement space. So what we're seeing here, is anyone familiar with LXRA, the Level Crossing Removal Authority in Victoria? This is a really controversial, highly political project. Everyone knows it around Skyrail or Tunnel. The engagement process that they're running is fantastic. It's on the ground in the community. They're using an online platform as well, Engagement HQ, to support that. But if we look at how they're running their online platform, rather than just having a survey, what I really like is how active their discussion forums are. And not just a discussion forum in relation to opinion setting. We don't want people just to give an opinion and disappear. This is about promoting people to actually have a conversation and a dialogue with one another. This is that deeper process coming in. If we scroll down, we can actually start to see people having an agree, disagree with other opinions. And this level of dialogue amongst one another is really, this is what drives a good online engagement space. This is for a lot of people who don't make it to the face-to-face sessions. Those that make it to the face-to-face sessions aren't going to be represented here, or very rarely. This is more for the broader community who can't make it to those face-to-face sessions. Also, we can see LXRA are being active in this space. They are facilitating it. It's not a space where they're just setting it up and not getting involved. They're fact-checking, they're engaging with the community about what are the key things that we're hearing at different points. And this is really showing, building that trust from being reactive to what's happening in the space. You need to be able to resource that. And that's something that I think a lot of organisations first don't think about. They say, let's get a tool, let's set it up, and then the idea of ongoing resource and maintenance often gets neglected or not thought about. So that's something that will come out in tomorrow's session as well. Around the levels of transparency, so one of the things that we're seeing is a lot of organisations are using this for formal submission processes and actually allowing people to, so going through a formal submission process and sharing those responses up here publicly. This is, everyone, lots of people probably know Alex. The real interesting thing here is that this process, it's timely to actually take the submission and then put it back up for public, so redact information and put it back up for public view. The visitation of these sites is really quite low, of these actual submissions. It's more around 2 or 3 people will come in, look at their own submission and maybe 2 others. But this whole process is really quite tedious to actually set up. So I think it's required. But one of the things that Simon was speaking about, is it the right way? I think there was one comment in the earlier session around how do we change submission processes that are meaningful for the public? Is this one? I think we can probably look at improving that. Now, jumping into the back end of the platform, this is where, so this is a demonstration site, this is where we're starting to see how do you start to foster that relationship and build it with your community? You can actually start to break down those that are getting involved by all sorts of things. So project activity, have they been involved in certain projects? Let's start to filter a list from our community. Have they adopted any tags? More importantly though, from their sign-up questions, you actually get to set the demographics for your community. And that's how you start to go, are we getting the right people, meaning that need to be represented in our consultations in the online component? If they're not being represented there, how are we capturing and bringing their input into the consultation? So being able to quickly break down and set different groups based on your demographic data, this is how you build up that engagement rate. It's about meaningfully, wrapping it up, all right, it's about meaningfully engaging with and promoting to people who have an interest in it and fostering that group along rather than sending an invite out to everyone within the community, because that's where consultation fatigue happens. Being able to be more mindful of your community and inviting them in is really, I think, one of the key successes. So if you want more information on really wanting to understand benchmarking within your industry and also what makes great engagement practice in building up these areas, come along to Don's session tomorrow. But thank you very much for this quick learning lab.